Hello, everybody. If you're just joining us, my name is Shawn Petty, coming to you live from thawing out San Antonio right now. Thank you for joining us. We apologize for the delay. Um, I understand I had to leave the keynote a little early, but I understand it was so impactful that it was running a little bit longer than normal. So just like in a real conference, this is a real conference. Let me rephrase that. Just like in a face-to-face conference, we would now be setting up the room and getting ready because we'd be rushing from the keynote to get started. So we are just getting started, but so excited to see everybody coming in. Welcome. So I just want to do a pulse check with everybody that we have online. All right, so let's make sure everybody has sound. So we have Cori coming to us from around Atlanta. Hi, Cori, how you doing?
Hi, how are you? Happy to be here.
Excellent, sounding great and glad to have you. We have Jackie coming to us from Connecticut today.
Hello, everyone. So happy to be here. Nice seeing you, Shawn.
Likewise. And at a significant time difference and probably temperature difference too, we have Julie coming to us live from Alaska.
Good morning, Shawn and everyone. It's great to see you all and hear you all over the last few days. I'm looking forward to this.
Excellent. Well, it is great to have everybody online. It looks like we have some attendees coming in, and we already have someone raising their hand, which is great. We'll get to you in just a second. But welcome to our show. I want to remind everybody before we get started, just a couple of tech issues, not issues, little tech items, I guess you could say. We are using the Zoom platform for this particular session, and we're broadcasting live, I believe, in YouTube. Is that correct, Elizabeth?
That is. Yep.
All right. So you're welcome to put comments in the YouTube channel. Or you're welcome to put comments here in the chat room. However, if you would like me to capture your questions, I would ask you to put them in the Zoom chat for me, because that's kind of what I'll be monitoring. And when you put it in the chat, if you could choose panelists and attendees. By choosing panelists and attendees, you allow everybody in the whole audience to see it. I noticed this the other day in our virtual site visit. Everybody was just responding to the panel. And what was happening is I was answering and people were like, that guy's crazy. What's he talking about? Because they couldn't see the question. So if you could throw that in and choose panelists and attendees, would greatly appreciate it. And I see we have some regulars. I see Dr. Lyles is here and some other folks. It's so great to see everybody. But let's get started. I'm going to turn the time over to our amazing producer. She is like the Gelman of this show. I mean, Kelly and Regis and everybody else, Oprah couldn't even deal with this producer. I'm turning it over to Elizabeth Siri to kick us off.
Thank you, Shawn. I'm going to keep it real short. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Perspectives from the Field. This is one of our favorite talk shows at Beyond School Hours. We have been doing this now for, I think, 6 years, maybe 5 or 6 years, and it just gets better and better. So I'd like to welcome all our panelists, and I'm going to turn it over to our fabulous host, Shawn Petty. Thanks, Shawn.
Oh, thank you so much, Elizabeth. You want to talk about a lady of many talents. She has been doing so many things during this conference. So kudos, Elizabeth, for all your support, and thank you very, very much. I do want to kick it off by just giving a big shout out to the Charles Stewart Mott Foundation, because it is the Mott Foundation that helps fund a lot of these initiatives, including Perspectives from the Field. And we are so grateful that there's a foundation that puts their money right where they believe their belief is. I love working with folks like that. And so very, very excited. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen because this is not a slideshow presentation. This is an interactive talk show with supposed to be 4 amazing presenters. Unfortunately, Tregille Wade is in Houston. And for those of you following the news and the weather, Texas has been kind of hit hard. We've been kicked in the teeth by the weather lately. And we discovered that our electrical grid is not quite up to where we need it to be. So some of us have been without power or water. I'm going on my third day without water, but I was able to take a shower from snow. So hopefully I look okay. But Tregill, unfortunately, has no power, no water, and thus could not join us. So we need to take a leaf out of Alaska and Connecticut and follow what you guys do so that we can deal with this crazy weather. But anyway, without further ado, because we only have until 12 o'clock, so this is going to be a quick show, let me introduce our guest today. Welcoming back to the stage, she's been on the show before, she's a regular, and she is one of the nation's top leaders that I love to listen into. We welcome back Jacquelyn Santiago from Compass. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. It's great to see you here.
We are so excited to have you. Thank you for joining us. And I don't know, what show is this for you, Jackie? How many shows have you been on before?
I think this is my fifth show.
Fifth show?
Yeah.
That's because once we find an amazing presenter, we just keep coming back because you're that good.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and honored to be here with Cori and Julie and yourself and others.
Well, thank you. And then I would like to also welcome back to the stage. We interviewed her this past year. She's coming back, and I understand this is a bittersweet time because you're retiring, and that is Julie from Alaska. Is that right, Julie?
Good morning, Shawn. It's great to see you and Cori and Jacquelyn. Yes, I am actually, I say that I'm retiring from my paying job, which I am. However, I will continue to do the work with youth and families for as long as I live, because it is the biggest passion that drives me every day.
You can never retire in this field. Like even when I believe in a beyond, even in the beyond, we're going to continue working. So, but there is a time to also enjoy a little bit of rest, and it is well-deserved. So I hope that you're able to do that. And for the very first time on this particular show, we're bringing an amazing, absolutely amazing individual who has a wealth of knowledge in regards to youth development, in regards to working with students of special needs. I would like to bring to the stage Ms. Cori Cain. How you doing, Cori?
Hi, I am so excited to be with you guys, Jackie and Julie. I hope I can, I feel honored to sit on the same stage, especially since you guys have been here, so you have to show me the ropes. Thank you, Shawn, for inviting me to participate. It's exciting.
Well, thank you. So this show is totally interactive, so feel free to keep yourselves unmuted. And as it is in this unique world, if people have dogs or kids at home, that's okay, because that's just the way we roll right now, right? Which is a true example of the way we are in the field. If anybody has questions, please throw them in the chat room. And I see Dr. Cassandra Graves, you have your hand up right now. If you could throw your question in the chat room, I'd appreciate it. And if it was just an accident and you're like, I put my hand up, but I can't put it down, let me know and I'll allow your virtual hand to have a rest. So let's kick off right away. I want to start with all three of you just kind of giving like a brief overview about how this past year has been. It has been, some people say, 2020 was kind of our test for 2021. 2021 is kicking off, kind of challenging. My favorite is here in Texas. In 2020, we learned how to deal with no toilet paper. In 2021, we're learning to deal with no water. So, how's your year? Let's start off with Jackie. How's your year been and what's going on?
It's been an intense year, I think, where we saw a lot of corporations and other agencies kind of shutting down. Compass really geared up because youth, middle and high school youth needed us the most. during this time. And so we were easily able to pivot. We decided that we would give grocery gift cards and deliver food to our youth that were most in need. We were still out in the community responding to incidences of violence. We were connecting with schools in order to make sure that the youth had computers and the technology they needed to access their school classes and interact with their peers. And we were responding when kids were having difficulty with either trauma, a crisis situation, or just needing someone to talk to. So we really were on the front lines the entire time. We haven't had a moment's rest, but we're thankful that in a time like this, we were able to step up to the plate and be there for our youth. They really don't enjoy the virtual setting. The kids really want to be social. They want to interact with other kids. And we have, at this point, become experts in social distancing and figuring out ways to kind of keep kids in interactive and working with one another and working with us. So it's been intense. It's been really intense. And for me, I think as the leader, it really caused me to pause and think about ingenious ways to figure out how to keep the culture and climate of the organization going, but also provide the team with mental health opportunities, time for rest and time for regeneration, because not only was COVID an issue, the issues with equity really came to light. And I think that our Black and brown youth were really looking at it like, do I really matter? Does this all really matter anyway? And so it was an opportunity for us to have a lot of conversations, a lot of courageous conversations with adults in the room to help guide them. So it's been intense, but we're thankful for the opportunity.
Well, I know that your organization's been forefront. I follow you guys on social media and I love the posts, love everything you're doing. It's great, but it is interesting you use the word pivot, that we've had to pivot. So I'm going to go up to our friends in Alaska there with Julie, and how has this year with COVID? So Alaska already sometimes deals with some challenges because a lot of people don't know. While we love to say Texas is one of the biggest states in the United States, 5 Texas could fit into Alaska. So you guys have tremendous sometimes challenges with distance, and I understand you have to take an airplane sometimes to visit programs, like a little Cessna. But so you're used to doing things kind of a little differently, but how has this unique COVID world, challenging equity world, challenging social justice world, how have you pivoted during this time frame? How's it affected you guys?
Well, first of all, I do want to send lots of blessings to Texas, because while we are used to dealing with this weather, we prepare for it. I do know that that's not the norm for Texas. And so when I say that Alaskans truthfully are very resilient, I think that carries into this year and everything that has had to be pivoted. We have really a tremendous amount of knowledge and work to do. Just thinking about this past year, the things that we've learned, I have been extremely impressed always with our staff who work with our youth on a daily basis on their ability to figure out what it is we need to do right away when we did shut down, how to involve the depth of the relationships that they had already built, to reach out to families, to go to their homes and drop off whatever is needed for either school or supplies for living, or making connections really to the resources that were in and still are in our community, to constantly be thinking about the next level of what we can do and how we just learned in the last month what worked, what didn't work, pivoting again, getting feedback most of all from our students and families on their needs. And when you talk about Alaska and having many communities that you fly into, there are many Alaska Native students in our programs that actually, when we shut down, took the time to go back to their own villages where they came from, because that was important to them to connect back into their community. And so we are figured out, how do we get materials out with them for them to take back to their community or to send to their community? And not that we did a lot of that, but the innovation, the creativity, the flexibility, the adaptability, everything that we really focus on sharing and working with our students on was exactly what our staff brought to the table to really, really focus on meeting the needs currently, in the future, as this went on longer, how we do that. And now we're actually back in school for those who want to attend school live, but we also have students at home choosing to stay at home. And so thinking about hybrid models and entering into that in our fourth quarter and looking at summer programming and what's needed for that.
Wow. Well, that's a lot of information. And I love some of the things that you brought up in just that conversation was making connections, returning. You didn't quite say this, but I think it was kind of implied. So if I'm saying things incorrectly, please correct me, of course, but returning kind of to your roots or back to people who give you strength. You mentioned, there were a lot of the students were returning back to their original villages and building back that roots, that place of strength where they come from. And that is a connection that all three of you as our guests have. Like all three of you have very strong connections to your communities and to your heritage, I guess you could say. So that's fascinating. And speaking of a person who has strong connection to heritage, because this is our first time, I'd like to ask Cori to share a little bit about her background, because Cori, I've been able to interview her. She grew up in Detroit, went to school in some different areas and ended up in Atlanta. So she's been in some cities that are mega culture points for our United States. So Cori, tell us a little bit about you and then your current work and how you've had to pivot or change with the times.
Sure. I work currently at the Atlanta Speech School, the Rollins Center for Language and Literacy. Our work really is to help equalize the playing field for children from birth through third grade by supporting teachers, family-facing professionals, and families in the area of language and literacy. I come to this work by way of a classical education training in early childhood education, and also I have worked in implementation as well as funding school readiness initiatives. My background and where I started my career was in deafness, really wanting to ensure that families of color who found themselves facing deafness in their families really had representation in the professional space and really had access to resources and services to support them as they learn to navigate deafness as a part of their family. I really helped to support them understanding the education and the academic and medical implications deafness had on their family, and help them to learn, how to use language to kind of build their children's knowledge, worldview, and just communication skills. So I have, been a practitioner, but also been a funder and working in implementation now. You asked about our current work. So the Rollins Center for Language and Literacy is such a unique place. We have a free online training platform that supports teachers, instructional leaders, home visitors, all those family-facing professionals really understand the importance of oral language development and how to lay that solid foundation for children so that they can what we call live a choice-filled life. We know that language literacy is an equalizer for our community. There is a national, global epidemic around language and literacy and reading on grade level. And through gracious gifts of multiple funding streams, we've been able to provide these free resources to teachers. And how I love the word pivot, Jackie, that you introduced, and Julie, you lifted up, because that's exactly what we've had to do in the time of this, what we call a twin pandemic, looking at the issues of access and equity, but also the health implications of having COVID-19 very present. And like I said, we've been an online platform, but our work really was, when I'm in my classroom on my home visit, what to do. It wasn't, how do I teach virtually? How do I build relationship, like you talked about, Jackie, virtually? And our amazing team, which some of them I see here today, pivoted to really learn this space of what does it look like to do an effective story read virtually. So they had to dig into the research, into practice, trial and error to really change, to help Cox Campus become a staying power for our community, to help meet them where they found themselves. We had parents who, were used to schools being the leaders of education, now found themselves at the forefront of this work. We had teachers having to manage their in-class work as well as virtual. And Cox Campus's goal is to really be a resource to the community. So we listened a lot, we learned a lot, and there was a lot of innovation that came from our team to help meet the need and rise to the challenge of addressing equity and the pandemic that we are faced with COVID-19.
Wow. Well, there's so much. I mean, I wish we had like 4 hours, because there's so much to talk to you ladies about. It's absolutely amazing. And so let me go back to this twin pandemic concept, or the idea. So when you say twin pandemic, and this is for anybody to chime in whenever, but when you say twin pandemic, are we talking about, the COVID-19? And then what's the other, as a facilitator, I have to bring this out.
Yes.
So if I sound like I'm ignorant and you're like, Shawn, it's just because I'm trying to ask questions, but what's go into this twin pandemic idea?
Yeah, for us, our work has always been driven by equity, leveling the playing field for those who are been traditionally lack the access needed to thrive.
Yeah.
And so when we mention pandemics, we know that there's a global crisis around COVID-19. In addition, I think this year has really illuminated a lot of what has happened around racial equity in our community, which is detrimental to our society and our work. And so, Julie, Jackie, I already know from this few minutes of meeting with you all that you guys are on the side of equity, really advocating and programming for those who are underserved or have lacked access. And so, Shawn, when I mentioned twin pandemics, that really is, how we view our work is that the work around language and literacy, the work that you guys are doing is really helping to meet a long lasting, pandemic of inaccess and equity that our country, nation is really now opening their eyes to.
I like how you phrase that. It's interesting that it takes a pandemic to recognize a pandemic, So, and I know this has been something that, like, Jackie, you've talked about too, and so I'm going to ask, and I'm going to throw this question off to Jackie because she's been here quite a bit. She's used to me asking those crazy questions that make you want to come through the screen and throttle me. So my question is, a lot of what I'm hearing is, it's over. Like, we got a new administration. We got a new, not that I'm trying to get all political, but we got a new administration. We're starting to get resources out. We got a vaccine. We have awareness now. We're done, right? Like, we can just kind of ride on everybody's,
No, Shawn, no.
What? No.
The work is just barely beginning. I think, I came into 2020 saying everybody wanted clear vision. Well, now you got it. This is like as clear can be. The pandemic only highlighted a pandemic that had been there all along. All of these inequities, and everybody on this show knows that they've existed. The playing field has not ever been level. There's instances of poverty and, racism and all of these different pieces that are underlying. And our elections just highlighted the fact that our nation is divided in many ways. It was way too close for comfort, and there are many things I have a lot of hope that the new administration and the vaccine and all these things will begin to pave the way for us to have better discussions and better connections and genuine connections with people. But until we are ready to face ourselves and have even courageous conversations with ourselves, starting here, and really looking at what things you may have grown up learning that may not be true, or what people you have to reach out to learn more about, what questions you need to ask in a very tactful way, that you need to really begin to, do that work internally. And then there's a lot more lobbying and advocating on behalf of all of the people that do not have, not to bring up, even being political, but I mean, it just was glaring to me this morning that while you're taking a bath with snow, and I'm glad you're doing well, my heart goes out to you and everyone in Texas. I have family in Houston and San Antonio as well. And my heart goes out to everyone there. But there was a senator that was able to travel to Cancun. While the rest of it, that just shows you the access, the privilege that some people have versus others do not have. And rather than making an excuse, there should have been action and owning up to these things. And that's what I fear, is that people are too comfortable, too happy with their position, and not able to connect with people and realize that there are people that are literally dying every day to have basic needs met. And so I'll get off my soapbox, because I think it's really important that we're very clear about that. All of us have a lot of growth to do, but for us, we connect with kids in a meaningful way and provide them access and opportunities to things that they would not have normally had. So.
Very true. Would Cori or Julie, you want to chime into kind of those thoughts?
Yeah, I love Jacquelyn's passion. It is a passion of mine. To know where our families are at any given time and what their needs are, to help support the family, and however that family is defined within a culture. It may be aunties and uncles and elders and grandparents. It may be foster families, all of those. Those are the first teachers. Those are the first people that our students relate to. And for us to be able to honor the families and meet them where they're at and what their needs may be, when we talk about the divide and the equity, think about, for example, Alaska and internet access, and what we know and take for granted. I'm a little bit older than probably most of you, but we didn't always have that. That wasn't a way to connect with learning and with people. I can't imagine not having it now and not being able to talk with my grandchildren, to experience other people, to continue on this work. But think about the families who are saying, I don't know how to continue on with school. I don't know how to support the students that I want to, and finding ways to connect in different ways is very important. As we come through this and we keep our minds on resiliency and hope, it is so important for us to take the time necessary with our children and youth to not shame or not to, in education, we talk a lot about reading by third grade, and we're so far behind now. And what are we going to do to catch our children up? Well, if they hear those things over and over and over again, they start to internalize that. And it's so important to bring our best selves to our schools or our communities or wherever we're working with youth and families to say, here's where we're at right now. What is it that you need? What types of books are you interested in? I mean, whatever it may be, we have to do listening and then move into how do we support? Listen, then support. Listen, then support. Then reflect. Where are we right now and what are the next steps? That's my biggest worry, is the language that we're using around this and how we as adults, yes, I'm scared at times. Yes, I feel I don't know what the next step is, but I need to process that with my colleagues. And by the time I talk to our children or our families, listen to them and then take it from there.
I know Cori has something to build on that because I can see her shaking her head.
Absolutely. I think, Julie, what you brought up is so true. I mean, access to internet is not an issue just in rural. I mean, we have school districts here where 4,000 kids had not logged on because they didn't have access to internet. So I think, when we, as professionals, as people with resource, as we're advocating, to really hear and listen where families find themselves is so important. I think our teachers, our, instructional leaders have grown so much during this time. There's a rule, have your camera. What if the child is afraid to show what their home life looks like? So this is a new territory, new game. The other thing that I definitely want to lift up which is so important, is when we're thinking about resilience in children and youth, empathy in a soft place for them this time is so important. And keeping that idea of creativity, wonder, and optimism. I mean, Julie, I think you said that so well, is the negative talk. I mean, this is a challenging time for all of us, but our role in this space as builders of these kids and families ecosystem is to be optimistic. I mean, this is a challenge for all of us. We're building a plane as we're flying it, but it's our job to continue to build that resilience in kids and model what that behavior looks like. Of course, we've never been through a global pandemic. If you're on this earth today, you didn't experience the, flu of however many years ago. So this is something new for all of us, but to try to have a growth mindset during this time is so important, because children are resilient, but they have to be taught how to be empathetic and creative and keep that wonder. And families need that. They need that light to look to kind of navigate their waters and get through this. So Shawn, I appreciate you giving me that time to speak on it. Julie, you really resonated quite a bit with your comments.
I believe also too that with that comment, I loved it because I think there's also a time to learn different things. There's opportunity to learn, life skills. I think we've taken a lot of time to talk with our kids about, like cooking simple things or doing laundry or reaching out to your neighbor, showing empathy. We as simple as it sounds, little hearts, thanking the health community and doing all of those different things were lessons that were very small, very inexpensive, but opportunities for us to build on other aspects that perhaps we haven't taken so much time to build on in school. So I think this is an opportunity for those life skills and social emotional learning opportunities. There are so many there. Let's pivot and do that rather than, focusing so much on all the other pieces that will come.
I love it. And the audience is chatting in the chat room. over, several comments in the chat, basically reaffirming what you're saying. So great strand. I put in the chat room, I've always said that, as an educator, we always have to focus on Bloom's taxonomy, right? But I'm like, before I can focus on Bloom, I have to Maslow. I have to focus on kids' needs. So I have to Maslow before I Bloom, because, honestly, and I tell this to superintendents, I tell this to people all the time. I'm like, a kid really doesn't care about math if they're starving, Maybe they care about how many apples they can get, and we can call that math, but they're really not worried about, quadratic formula if they know they're going to go home and the only thing they have in the pantry is the ramens that they were able to scrounge up from the other day. So, there's the food scarcity issue. Also, there's we've mentioned, there's the equity issue that was really raised awareness during a pandemic, during in this twin pandemic, the pandemic from COVID, I guess I could say. I want to pivot the conversation a little bit to this generation. So I bet if I were to ask you right now, and just think about it, but if I were to ask you, where were you on 9/11 when the planes hit the tower? I bet you could tell me exactly, and feel free, you could probably tell me exactly to the minute, to the second of where you were. Is that a true statement? Shaking hands? Okay, good. I would propose that 9/11 was kind of that generation's point of awareness change. It really kind of modeled, kind of some decisions being made. I would like to propose that this current generation growing up today, COVID-19, the death of George Floyd, the corresponding outrage across America, the Capitol riot, and everything that has come out of that is kind of this generation's defining moment. And with defining moments, you can either, make decisions that take you down one path or make decisions that take you down another path. And the three of you are lights in a world of darkness, so you guide people. So I'd like to ask you, with the trauma going on, with this defining moment, what can we do as individuals who influence this space, and those on the line listening? What can we do to make the right decision, to move the bar on equity, move the bar on education, eliminate poverty, regardless of how Pollyanna that particular thought process is? I'd love to see that. What can we do to challenge these assumptions and move the bar? Anyone? Or I can call, either way.
So I'll go first. I think one of the things that I have noticed in this time is that people are willing to have the tough conversations. I think that's a start to acknowledge that there is inequity. I don't think we can even move the bar without that being the first step, is to start with that as a space. We have to acknowledge that there are inequities. In the city of Atlanta alone, in our public school district, if you look at the NAEP scores, 74% of white kids are reading on grade level, while 16 and 23% of Black and brown kids are reading on grade level. And it's not a capacity issue. It's an access issue. It's a resource issue. And so I think just starting there is to say there is something that we have to address. I think I'm a firm believer you have to know what the problem is before you can take action to change it. And so I would say that's the first thing that we have to do, is start by having these tough conversations with all communities. We can't have them in a heterogeneous way. I mean, in a homogeneous way. It has to be heterogeneous. We have to bring all people to the table to have these conversations.
Thank you.
I would just add to, I think we talked about leveraging the opportunity that we have and seeing opportunity in what we have and building on that. But I think it's also about connecting with people in a very real way. I think Julie's mentioned it, Cori's mentioned it as well. Meet people where they are, listen in order to actually provide a solution that they want and need. And then I would say that it's also about taking action. I think this year we mobilized and we saw what it can do when you're actually advocating and voting and building up a base of people. So I think it's really important this year. I took it upon myself. I hate talking on the phone and doing all those things, but I was making calls and making sure that people were understanding our points of view and advocating in that way. I think that's really important, all that groundwork. But I also like to just stop here and say that the youth also have had such an amazing voice. And for so long, their voice has been kind of quiet in the corner, but they have an experience now that we have not had, that people 100 years before us have not had. And they are learning and adapting in new and real ways. And they think very differently than we do. I say we need to put them up in the forefront and we need to train them up and give them the skills and guide them, but let them lead us, in a way and let their voice shine because they really are the future.
So let their voice shine. I love it.
Yeah.
Julia, I know you want to comment.
Well, Jacquelyn, you really hit that as well as Cori, because to me, that honestly is really the next phase of all of this. Is I have such respect for our youth and what they have been doing. And started to do even before the pandemic, and smaller groups even before that. But I think there's a movement right now where our youth want to have the impact, and we need to be there to stand beside them, to help with whatever it is that they need, to lend and bring their voice to the forefront. And that's the exciting work in front of us. And that's what will keep me going, because that's what I want to get back to, is actually working with our youth. And the one thing, I know we're getting close on time, but I am very passionate about Alaska Native culture and learning every day. I have much more to learn, but I wanted to share with you the Native knowledge that I know, and this can be also found on the Alaska Native Knowledge Network. And it really is 10 tenets that I think cross every culture that I currently know about. And it's show respect for others. Each person has a special gift. Share what you have. Giving makes you richer. Know who you are. You are a reflection of your family and culture. Accept what life brings, because we can't control many things. Have patience. Some things cannot be rushed. Live carefully. What you do will come back to you. Take care of others. You cannot live without them. Honor your elders. They show the way of life. Pray for guidance. Many things are not known. And see connections. All things are related.
Wow. I see.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. All those lessons I felt like spoke to even the time that we're in with COVID, like your elders, being patient, perfect. It's beautiful.
It's so funny. As we live in this world, sometimes it's so important to go back to our heritage, our upbringing, because there are lessons learned in all cultures, in all areas of the world that we can benefit from. So thank you for bringing a little bit of the Alaskan Native knowledge into our discussion day. I put the website in the chat room for you there. So alas, we have reached our time. I know it was like really, and it just went by. And we were supposed to speak about trauma and resilience. And I hope some folks are not going to be like, oh, you didn't really address that. I hope you see how what we did talk about today addresses it. And let me actually make a correction to myself too. I mentioned that 9/11 was a turning point. I'd also say November 4th, 2008, when the first Black president was elected, was also a major turning point, as is November 3rd of 2020, when the first Asian African-American woman became the first vice president of the United States. I mean, we are living in amazing times right now. So, thank you. Everybody, I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to kind of leave everybody with a final thought. And then I'm going to have Elizabeth close us out. But when Elizabeth says, okay, I would like to ask Elizabeth, turn it back to me, because I have a YouTube video. It's a song. It's a song that I want to play for everybody, done by the One Voice Children's Choir, which is a group that I follow. And I would like to share that with everybody. If you have time to listen, if you don't, go ahead. But 30 seconds to wrap up. What is the message you would like to leave with our audience today so they can go forth and move the bar on many of the issues out there, but also to celebrate the fact that we are bringing light in the darkness. We are moving the bar. We're going to change the world. I really believe this. And it's this team right here and the folks on the line that are going to do it. So I started with Jackie, so I'm going to start with Cori, go Julie, and then go Jackie. Cori.
So I'll tell you that in preparation for this time and also helping my 10-year-old with the Black History Month project, we focused on Booker T. Washington, and he, even back then, talked a lot about resilience. And then one quote that I'll leave with you, even though we didn't dive so much into resilience today, but what we're calling our youth to do, our families to do, is to be resilient, to thrive in the midst of a challenge. And I'll leave this quote with you. It says, "I've learned that success is to be measured not so much by the position that one has reached in life as by the obstacle overcome to succeed." And that's where all of us find ourselves. We are triumphant in the midst of all of this turmoil, racial, political, health, pandemic. And so we define ourselves and give ourselves agency through that challenge. And if we continue to roll up our sleeves, do the work, we'll be a better nation for it. And so I thank you guys for your work. I know you all are here because of you're committed to this space and to learning and growing more on how to help our families, our youth. So thank you for your time and your energy today.
Thank you. Wow. Julie.
Yes, and I would just say we are all leaders in the room. There's not one of us that isn't. And while I may not know everybody in the room, I know we have the ability to lead. And so for me, it's waking up every day and giving gratitude and sharing gratitude with everybody I meet, and also spreading love and kindness. That's what everybody needs right now.
Amen.
I love that. Well, I would just say that wherever there's threat or trauma, there's an opportunity. And I don't think that youth in particular can do it without having strong adults, caring adults in their lives to guide them. As long as we can provide them with the resources and opportunities, any youth is able to thrive. We can all thrive if we just help one another. And I love that love. Sprinkle a little love on top of it, and I think it'll go a long way.
Well, wow. First of all, let me personally thank each and every one of you for taking time out of your busy schedules. Everybody, it's not like we pay them a lot of money to come and talk. They do this out of the kindness of their heart because they want to move the bar with kids, with youth development, with the world. And I cannot thank you all enough. You really are examples to me. You really are mentors to me and help lift me up. So thank you. I'm going to turn the timer over to Elizabeth, but Elizabeth, I do have a video at the very end if anybody wants to hang around just to play. So Elizabeth, go ahead and close us out.
Yeah, this was another incredible conversation. You guys, I really appreciate your time. Cori, Jackie, and Julie. I was choked up. You know, everything that you're saying, I think is about resilience and moving forward to a better, brighter future for children and families. And I appreciate you being here. And Shawn, you're amazing. I know you're dealing with like a weather crisis, and you are fantastic. So we just appreciate you all again. And thanks to the Charles Stewart Mott Foundation. Without the Mott Foundation, none of this would be possible. So again, we just want to thank them too. Please fill out your session evaluations, check out the exhibit hall, and I'm going to turn it back to Shawn. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. As Elizabeth said, the conference is not over. We still have a lot of great things planned for you. So please enjoy the rest of the Beyond School Hours conference. I think they've done an amazing job doing this virtually. It's been absolutely fun. Also, I do want to throw out there, be aware that Perspectives from the Field show is evolving this year. We're going to do things over this year as part of your Beyond School Hours conference registration. We're going to try to do things every month. So we're going to be able to expand. I've already put bookmarks in some of our speakers' time frames saying, hey, I may call on you to do some more stuff, you know. So that's definitely there. But as we close up, I want to kind of pivot a little bit to a YouTube video that I saw a little while ago. And this YouTube video is built to a song called Thank You. And it's by One Voice Children's Choir. And it's about 4 minutes. So if you have to run, we totally understand. But if you have a chance, this is my closing message to everybody on the line. I cannot thank you enough. So here we go. Hopefully everybody will be able to see and hear.
You're the engine that makes all things go, and you're always in disguise, my hero. I see your light in the dark, smile on my face when we all know it's hard. There's no way to ever pay you back. Bless your heart, know I love you for that. Honest and selfless, I don't know if this helps it, but good job, you're doing a good job, a good job. You're doing a good job, don't get too down. The world needs you now, know that you matter, 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 yeah. You're doing a good job, a good job. You're doing a good job, don't get too down. The world needs you now. Know that you matter, 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 yeah.
6 in the morning, as soon as you walk through that door, everyone needs you again. The world's out of order, it's not a sound when you're not around.
All day on your feet, hard to keep that energy. I know when it feels like the end of the road, you don't let go, you just press forward. You're the engine that makes all things go, always in disguise, my hero. I see a light in the dark, smile in my face when we all know it's hard. There's no way to ever pay you back. Bless your heart, know I love you for that. Honest and selfless, I don't know if this helps it, but
good job, you're doing a good job, a good job.
good job.
You're doing a good job, don't get too down. The world needs you now, know that you matter, matter, matter.
doing a good job, a good job. You're doing a good job, don't get too down. The world needs you now. Know that you matter.
Thank you so much to our first responders, our healthcare workers, our mothers.
Thank you to our moms and our dads.
Thank you to our teachers who've helped us.
We know it's been hard, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good job.
Oh,
Shawn, why did you do
thank
this?
you, Shawn. I have to do the show for the rest of the day, buddy.
I'm sorry, but from us to you, thank you for all that you do. You guys really are amazing.
Oh, thank you all. Have a wonderful day. We really appreciate it.